Welcome to Echuca.
Welcome to Echuca.
I'm Joseph.
Peter.
And we're here to discover the architecture and a little bit of the history of Echuca. Now, I've just stopped into the information centre and I picked up the brochure, a heritage walk. So if you're interested in doing this, pop in there first and we're ready to go.
Okay. Now, I understand Echuca is an Aboriginal word meaning meeting of the waters. No, and I'll continue. Echuca was originally a crossing point for stock being taken overland into New South Wales.
In 1853, Henry Hopwood, ex-convict, built an inn and punt for travellers to take stock over the Murray River into New South Wales. In 1864, Echuca was chosen for the terminus for the railway line from Melbourne. This was an advantage point and it transformed Echuca into Australia's largest inland port.
So you can imagine that the development of a railway gave the town some level of community and destination. But not only that, notice that it was in 1853 when it was New South Wales, because it was only a couple of years into the state of Victoria when it was separated in when, Joe?
1851.
1851.
So follow us as we take a walk around Echuca and discover some of the buildings, and we're going to be starting here with the pump house behind me. During the 1850s, only the fledgling business empire created by Henry Hopwood, Echuca's founder, existed around Little Hopwood Street, the hub of early Echuca. At the time, Hopwood's punts and pontoon bridge were the only means of crossing the Murray and Campaspe rivers. In the 1870s, where the peak years of the steamer trade at Echuca, wool was the lifeblood of the port, and the wharf became a place of bustle and activity, with the constant arrival and departure of steamers during the season, when the river was high enough to allow them to travel. Forwarding agents were at their wits' end trying to find a place to store wool while waiting for rail trucks to take it to Melbourne, and this led to several wharf extensions. By 1900, competition from railways had killed the river trade. From the 1860s, the town centre was concentrated in the vicinity of the wharf in High Street and the northern end of Hare Street. By the mid-1870s, increasing wharf activity created a spirit of optimism, and at the time many single-storey shops erected 10 years earlier were replaced by the impressive two-storey brick buildings seen in High Street today. The opening of the Iron Bridge in 1878 and the decline of the river trade led to consolidation of Echuca's commercial centre in Hare Street. Shops gradually moved south towards the railway station, which by then was the busy transport terminal. This trend continued until the 1960s, when the transfer of more shops to Hare Street led to the near demise of Old High Street. The area became the movement to commerce away to Hare Street and southwards has left Old High Street undisturbed, invoking memories of the 19th century when Echuca was Australia's leading inland port. Run down and neglected, and it was not until the recreation of the old port of Echuca opened in 1974 that rejuvenation began. Echuca was put on the map by the filming of All the Rivers Run early in the 1980s. Shop owners restored their buildings and increased visitor numbers led to revitalisation. As you can see behind me is the Echuca pump house. It was built in 1884. Water was actually pumped from the Murray River for hydraulic cranes which were used on the Echuca Wharf.
Peter here. I'm standing in front of the commercial hotel at 499 High Street, Echuca. George Pedman, a former station hand, built this former hotel in 1862. Number one, I don't think he actually built it himself. And number two, I think he did really well as a station hand to actually afford it. But be that as it may. And before long, it actually became a stop for the Cobb & Co carriages along the way on their way to Bendigo. So again, important thing in those days. The hotel closed, however, in 1971 after its license was revoked, and it then became a YMCA for a number of years. Now, it did change hands and it's got a commercial precinct down the bottom. I think the hotel today, you can see the individual influences in terms of ownership and their architectural style. I'd call it a bit of hodgepodge, really.
Okay, we're at the Echuca Town Hall, which was built in 1868. It was built as a combined courthouse and council chambers. Today, it actually operates as a library, so it has been sort of repurposed, but for a good reason. Better than being unused.
Picture this, 1876, the building behind me was built for a Dr. Henry Crossums. Now, being a doctor, it was actually built as a surgery. That was built by architect W.C. Barland. W.C., unfortunate initial in architectural terms. Okay, now later on in around 1897, the successor, Dr. G. Eakins, added the veranda. And it also became a lying-in hospital. Hopefully they weren't lying in for too long, and then they were discharged. Okay, then during the war, it became a boarding house, and it remained so through World War II, and remained a boarding house until 1999, until it then became a private residence. Oh, and today it is used as accommodation. The Murray Hotel, erected in 1879, looking a little bit neglected today. It was pretty lively in its time. It was a bit of a honky-tonk music hall. They had the high kickers and a lot of piano playing. So a bit of a lively sort of thing. And then I think it was de-licensed. Lots of activity happening in this neck of the woods. And then it became a private residence.
I'm standing at a former brothel. John Weaver erected this building of 6 small rooms, and this brothel was built in 1869. 10 years later, it became part of a boarding house fronting Little Hope Street and run by Mrs. E. Every under the name of Australian Restaurant. The timber building that was actually in front of it burnt down in 1887, but the 2-story building behind it survived. And from 1887 to 1897, it was certainly run as a brothel by the licensee of the Murray Hotel, which Peter talked to you about earlier. It employed those high kickers such as Flocker Liz into 1897, and it lost its license at that time for its immorality.
The Steam Packet Hotel, built in 1879, it replaced a single-storey hotel built 13 years prior and demolished by fire. This hotel actually lost its license in 1910, and then it became the premises for the Working Men's Club in 1921. The Custom House, built in 1884, it was used for the collection of customs duty. Well, that sort of makes sense. These duties were payable on goods transferred across the intercolonial borders. The Custom House was closed in 1910 and it was used by the Victorian Railways in 1924. So I suppose they were collecting state taxes even back then.
We enjoyed our Cobb & Co horse ride through the Port of Echuca and High Street. A ride will set you back $10 for an adult and $40 for a family. It is a great way to get an overview of the town and adds part of the nostalgia of years gone by when one would travel in this manner. I'm standing at Shackle's Bonded Store, one of the port's earliest buildings, built in the late 1850s for Morgan and Mackintosh, Melbourne's based importers. In 1865, it was purchased by James Shackle and used it as a bonded warehouse. In 1866, W.M. McCulloch and Company took over as a warehouse offices. 3 stores. So here it is today. Still open, operates as visitor centres and lollies and fudges. So if you're looking for something sweet, just pop into the Bonded Store. And also information and the Heritage Walk information pamphlet, you can get that here.
Okay, Star Hotel, built in 1867. You notice single story. And it was one of about 80 hotels in Echuca at that time. However, the delicensing board came along and another one closes, and that was in 1897. So only 30 years of operation and then no more gold. Hey, I've discovered some further information about this single level hotel. In fact, it wasn't single level. It actually had a basement and a bar. Now, I understand after the hotel was delicensed in 1897 that there was still a bit of drinking happening down in that basement bar, and there was a subsequent tunnel where they would escape from when they were being checked upon. There's still a lot of activity here.
I'm standing at the Echuca Wharf, which was commenced being built in 1864. It was the largest inland port in Australia. Echuca was often called Chicago of Australia. The massive wharf was built on 3 levels to accommodate the rise and fall of the Murray River and was originally 5 times its present length. It's a little bit difficult to see from this angle, but amazing facts. PS Adelaide is the oldest wooden hull paddle steamer still operating anywhere in the world. You can purchase tickets to board the paddle steamer and take a memorable river cruise on the mighty Murray. The PS Adelaide was built in 1866 by George Linklater.
I'm having a moment with my mate Sean, because Sean here looks very much like Sean from Melbourne. So g'day Sean and Tarek, hope you're doing well. And this is our little blue heeler here. He's a faithful companion. We are standing on the border of New South Wales and Victoria. Now I'm in Victoria, now I'm in New South Wales. Now I'm in Victoria, now I'm in New South Wales. Okay, the sign says here that the border of the 2 states used to be the centre of the river, but actually the river is under the control of New South Wales. Now, we also know that prior to Federation, when we operated as separate colonies, that there were lots of state taxes involved, but with Federation, all of those state taxes were subsequently abolished. I am standing on the Echuca Wharf. The wharf was built by Victorian Railways between 1865 and 1867, and the opening of 17 bays of the original wharf, which extended further north and south and included separate shed for bonded goods and platform for use of carriers transferring freight between road and river. The wharf remained busy throughout the 19th century, but declining traffic led to its partial demolition and removal of the goods shed during the post-war period.
A2 steam locomotive. Built in 1916 by Victorian Railways, the A2 class was an impressive passenger locomotive until it was taken off register in November 1963. The A2 996 travelled throughout Victoria before it was purchased by the Echuca Lions Club and the Echuca Rotary Club and given to the city of Echuca in the late 1960s for permanent display at the port. Steaming. Echuca was always a steamy place. Echuca was the second biggest port, actually depended on steam. The Industrial Revolution between 1700 and 1800 had more muscle power than any men's muscle power or horsepower. It was a great source of power, empowering mills and factories. After 1864, the Echuca Wharf linked the paddle steamers plying the inland rivers with steam rail services to Melbourne. In the 20th century, steam gave way to the greater efficiency of electricity. I'm at the salt works, well, which is behind me. Looks like a tin shed, but it was built in 1895. The Kunat Salt Works was formed to extract salt from a lake of that near name in Swan Hill. This is where John Lewis set up his salt works, packing and dispatching salt via the railway that served the wharf. The salt works sold in 1905, and then in 1905 it sold to a blacksmith. In 1910 a coach builder, in 1915 a blacksmith again, and in 1927 a sawmill operated here until the 1980s. I'm actually standing at the Bridge Hotel, and it's associated with Echuca's founding father Henry Hopwood, who built this inn in 1858. Travellers quenching their thirst would stop here whilst waiting their turn to cross the river. It must have been a very profitable inn, that's all I can say.
So, for many of my active followers and admirers, look what I have discovered here. Another Annis and George Bill's trough. So many of you will know the story of these particular troughs. There are 700 of these troughs. The building behind me was built in 1867 and is still in very good nick today, but not functioning as a police station. It is, well, as the sign indicates, it is a local museum.
Crossing. It was here in 1853 that Henry Hopwood, founder of Echuca, put the town's first punt across the Campaspe rivers, securing it by a cable around one of these gum trees that are in the area, a river red gum. The Murray and the Campaspe rivers being so close at this point, Hopwood's next move was to put a punt across the Murray, a short distance away, so that the stock and wagons naturally flowed from one punt to another. This was the start of Hopwood's monopoly over Echuca's river crossings.
Now, Jojo was talking to you earlier about the tree. Well, we've now discovered the tree, and it says it was here in 1853 that Henry Hopwood, founder of Echuca, put the town's first punt across the Campaspe, securing it by a cable around this tree. And look, cable still here. The hotel behind me was built in 1892 for a Louisa Isel and remained in her possession until 1902, so that's 10 years. Later, the McIntosh family transformed it into an Irish pub in 1988. Now, it may have been renamed the Shamrock at that time because the Shamrock is very Irish. Now, you can also see it has the Guinness sign out the front, and it's got the Irish flags there as well. So I trust it's done a pretty good trade. Good morning, Peter here. It's very brisk and we're in Echuca. Now, behind me is the building we stayed in last night, and it's got a sign on it and it says under new management. So the place is called under new management. Not really, I just suspect that the previous management must have been pretty poor. We are actually staying at what was once the old post office, the Tower Suites. Very pleasant accommodation. Hey, and it was built in 1879. Now, it is across the road from a hotel that we enjoyed a lovely meal at last night, and that hotel was built in 1895 and is called the Royal Hotel. Most country towns have a royal hotel. They aspire to royalty.
I'm at the Echuca State School. It was built in 1874 to 1877. The school was damaged by fire in 1890 and reconstructed in 1915. The last classes in this school were held in 1995. Okay, behind me you can see the general store and butter factory. It was erected in 1877 by Michael Broderick, who ran it as a store until his death in 1890. Then in 1904, brothers A and C Sims established the Eureka Butter Factory. It could make a ton of butter per day. Competition forced it to its failure, and by 1912, one brother reduced it to a general store. And today, as you can see, it runs as a cafe. What you see behind me was once AUSTRALiA House. It was built circa 1860, and it was the house of Henry Hopwood. Henry Hopwood married Charlotte Walters of Bendigo in 1859, and they lived in this house up until he died on the 1st of January in 1869.
Peter here, I'm taking over from what Jojo has just said. Now, after Henry Hopwood passed away, the Brigidine nuns acquired the property in 1886. However, there is a sign on the building that says 1888. I gather it became operational as a girls' school and convent at that time. The nuns originated in Ireland and they established a number of schools around Australia. I could tell you more. Actually, one of my sisters went to a Brigidine school in Hawthorne, okay, and that was Kilmoira. And then there was another one where I went to school. It was called Kildara, and then that closed down just after about the early 80s.
So now I'm here to do the final wrap. So now that we've completed...
It's actually called a wrap up.
So now that we've come to the end of our Heritage Walk, I'll just reinstate the fact that you can get your Heritage Walk from the Information Centre. Take a walk around. We've seen some great architecture. I haven't mentioned all the buildings in this video. There is so much here to see, so much history surrounding the Port of Echuca and Echuca itself as a town. You just have to come along sometime and spend some time for yourselves and get immersed in its history. Well, that's all from me and Peter, and we'll see you on a future adventure. Thank you for coming along with us, and I hope you enjoyed this walk around Echuca.
So long, farewell.
Auf Wiedersehen, goodbye.